Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? I hope everybody is having a great day, a great Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Hopefully, everybody's having a great, fantastic Wednesday. I hope all of you have had an amazing day. I am glad you could join me for this episode of Calibrated Live. Episode number 61. I titled the last episode 59, and I now have two episode 59, so I'm going to have to go make it a quick edit. I am an idiot. I am confirmed dyslexic, confirmed Down syndrome as well, so stick with me. We'll make it. Jokes aside, I hope everybody is doing great today. We have quite a bit to talk about, as you can see from the title. The green light has been given to Ukraine to strike Russia with Western-made weapons besides the United States, but we're going to get into that as well. We have quite a few map updates to talk about, some upcoming events going on, a lot to talk about today, guys. We got to get into it. I got about 9 news articles up here that I want to get through as well, so we got some stuff to talk about. Before we get started, if you guys are new here, please like and subscribe on that YouTube page. That helps me out tremendously. Also, if you guys are interested in finding more of my work, you can find that on Telegram or Twitter. Those links are in the description of the YouTube video. If you do want to support me, guys, I am completely funded by you. I work for you. I very much care about your opinions about my work. I want my work to represent my community and my audience as well as myself effectively. So if you have any suggestions, please DM me, send me messages. I'm always willing to talk. If you want to support me financially, you can do so through Patreon. I just posted my second demonetized episode. Those are just episodes where I go through more graphic, combat-related footage that I can't show on YouTube. That is on my Patreon. If you guys support me there, again, send me messages. Tell me what you want to see. I'll make changes based off of your guys' suggestions. And if you wanted to support me in another way, financially and more interactive way, super thanks, super chat, super sticker in the YouTube live stream. If you ask a question, I will respond to it live. All right, guys. 2 minutes, 23 seconds for my intro. Not too bad, especially because I waited some. So let me know where you guys are all at. I'm seeing Sweden, sweet. Miami, awesome. Oh, Fargo, North Dakota, man. That is like Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the same way that the only reason people know it exists is because of a crime TV show or a crime story. Cool. Pompano Beach, Florida. Awesome. Or Pompano Beach, Florida. Awesome. Communist Illinois. Welcome, Sacramento. It's good to see everybody. Hello from Sweden. Hello from Texas. Hello from Georgia, state or country. Either way, welcome in, everybody. It is so cool that we have so many people from around the world here. All right, let's go ahead and get into some map updates. I know that's what you guys want to see, so we will start there. Head over to the old map. As you guys can see, hold on. What am I looking at here? Oh, we need to make this bigger. Get my ugly mug out of there. All right. So go over to the map. We got some updates going on. Guys, not a lot is going on in this Kharkov region. There is a ton of fighting. Don't get me wrong. There is a ton going on. If you watch my demonetized series, you will see. Actually, let's do this. This doesn't make it any smaller, but then you can see my ugly mug. You guys, there's a ton of fighting going on here if you go see my demonetized series or if you go to my Twitter page. By the way, all of the content on the demonetized series is also on my Twitter and on my Telegram. I just talk about it and go into more depth and really dissect it. There's a ton of fighting. The Ukrainians are losing a ton of systems in this area. Again, there doesn't seem to be a huge Russian presence here, but the Ukrainians are having a very difficult time dealing with this incursion. The biggest issue seems to be the fact that the Ukrainians can't deal with the glide munitions, drones, ISR, ballistic missiles. All of the deep strike is making any Ukrainian counterplay in this region incredibly difficult. Here in Vovchansk, the Ukrainians do still have some presence on the northern end of the river here. It is not clear how much of this is in the gray zone, how much of it is captured by the Russians. We do have Russian geolocations in this area, so we know the Russians are here. the Ukrainians are doing everything they can to hold on to this part of the river, because if they lose it, the Russians gain a pretty strong defense line and then can begin operations across. And it is very difficult for the Ukrainians to recross this river. In that demonetized series, I believe, I can't remember if I recorded it in time, we saw a bridge-laying vehicle, which Ukraine has very few of, attempting to cross the Vovicha River here on one section. I don't know where exactly, and it was hit by a Lancet and destroyed. So staging counter operations like counterattacks, counteroffensives in this area are very difficult, even though the Ukrainians have brought massive amounts of reserves to this area. Whatever they could spend to send to this area was sent, and it has yet to push the Russians back almost anywhere up here. And again, this is a rather small Russian incursion. Just for rumors from this region, we have now reports that there is a much larger Russian buildup in this area. I do want to warn everybody, these reports do come from pro-Ukrainian sources. Mostly, sometimes the Ukrainian government, these are where these ideas come from. So you might have heard a rumor that there was Russian helicopters in Belgorod again for the first time since the Battle of Kiev, whatever, that whole thing happened. This has been a constant trope for the Ukrainian government. It is a way to get themselves back in the headlines. They say, oh, look, the Russians are moving into Belarus, including Belarus. It's becoming a much bigger deal. They're going to attack us again. Give us the green light to strike in Russia. Give us this, give us that, give us this. This is a constant thing. So you have to be very careful. I mean, the Ukrainians have been talking about a Kharkov offensive for, I don't know, a couple years now. Every time the season comes around when the Russians can go on the offensive, usually summer or winter, the Ukrainians talk about an offensive here. This year, it actually happened. There are reports that the Russians, and these seem like more serious reports coming in, that the Russians are going to try to push for Zolochiv here. This would be an indication of what is to come in the region. If the Russians are just pushing here, this would appear to be a smaller fixing operation to bring Ukrainian troops to the north. If there is a second incursion, the Russians will be looking at a much wider sanitary zone. This is what Putin has openly said, that they are going to create this sanitary zone. I think this is just preparation for something much bigger. The Ukrainians have already been given the green light for these weapons. And one of the very clear statements that Putin said was, if that is allowed, this sanitation zone will go much further than it already is. And I'm going to talk about something in a little bit, but again, I want to reiterate that a lot of what you're seeing right now is political theater. If you go to my Twitter or you go to my Telegram, I just made a pretty long post basically describing what's going on, and I'll talk about it right here for you guys with the whole green light situation. So there's this constant theater going on. It's geopolitics, it's diplomacy, but it's theater, right? The green light for Ukraine to strike Russian targets was decided months ago. There is no way these leaders talk about this stuff in public without it already basically being a done deal. It's very risky. It reveals your hands. It tells your enemy basically already what you're going to do, unless your enemy has intelligence of what you're already going to do. To me, this screams desperation. The West has not allowed this for such a long period of time because of the potential escalatory responses that they could receive from the Russians. Remember, the Russians still fully control the escalation ladder in this conflict. They get to choose when and where to escalate. As you see, the U.S. is being forced up the escalation ladder because they're running out of options. The West, U.S., Europe, U.S. has not given the go-ahead, so ATACMS cannot currently be used against Russia, targets in Russia proper. However, this is, again, the political theater, and I'll go into it. So do you guys remember when the Russians, do you remember when the West was talking about delivering things like HIMARS, delivering things like Western tanks, Western aircraft? Remember when that was the taboo? At first it was tanks, right? And it always starts with one European country saying, "We're going to do it. We don't care what the rest of you do. Ukraine needs this. We're going to get it done." This is the theater. The West is a alliance. They are a unit. They are a unit. There are dissenting opinions in that unit, but for the most part, they are a single entity that acts together. The first time it was Boris Johnson putting on his Churchill, his Wish.com Churchill impression, right? He was, we're going to send the Challengers. We need the West to send tanks. Germany, send your Leopards. And Germany, throughout this entire thing, has been very reluctant to do any of this. Constantly, consistently, they regularly turn down the invitation to escalate against Russia. A lot of people call Olaf a coward. I think he is a coward, but I think he's a coward for other reasons. I think one of the actual legitimate things that he has done this war has been preventing Germany from slipping down the same slope that all of the other countries in Europe have kind of gone down. But, they let Nord Stream get bombed out. So he's kind of a major pushover and a lackey of the West still. But you can see how he's trying to prevent this. No Taurus, no Leopards for the longest time, no this, no that. They really don't want to they don't want to overstep that bound. But eventually they get pressured into it because Germany is deindustrializing, right? They don't really have much options. They don't have a lot of leverage in the alliance. They are just getting pushed around. And you saw that with Olaf. He did not look like he wanted to give the go ahead when he was talking with Macron. We're going to look at that a little later on too in an article. They didn't want to give the tanks, right? But one country, one European leader drove ahead and was that, basically a battering ram to break that red line. Once that red line was broken, all the other European countries joined in. And then lastly, the US joined in. Same thing happened with long-range missile systems being sent to Ukraine. Storm Shadow, then the Scalp, and then ATACMS finally when all the other ones were exhausted. The same thing's going to happen with strikes inside of Russia. It's going to be the French are going to allow it, and the British and the Germans. I mean, the Germans haven't sent any missiles, so that doesn't really matter. But they're going to allow these strikes to happen inside of Russia. The West decided this months ago. They've already agreed upon this. France was the battering ram. The rest of NATO countries come in, and then once the shock value, once the, oh my God, they used Western weapons on Russia, once the retaliation comes, once all that happens, then the US is going to say, okay, now you can use ATACMS because it's just another event. This moment right here is going to be the moment that defines the future of the SMO. How Putin responds to this next escalation is going to be instrumental in how the West approaches Russia for the next 50 years through diplomacy, through economics. We are coming up on the make or break moment, right? I personally am at the point where I think the West is so desperate and so unhinged that Russia needs to start behaving as the West would to scare the West back into its place. And I know that's a very, very risky idea. I think that there are a number of escalation methods that the Russians could approach. Some say tactical nukes. Honestly, at this point, after you've given so many warnings, I don't think that the use of a tactical nuclear weapon, if the doctrine of your country is crossed, would be necessarily a bad idea at this point. And I don't mean on a civilian population. And I honestly don't really mean on a military target. I don't really know if there are that many military targets that aren't directly impacted, our civilians are directly impacted by striking them, but there needs to be a message sent. And this is not fear mongering. This is actually the opposite of fear mongering, I would say, because we are at the point where the fear is already there, right? We are already at the precipice of nuclear war. We are already at the precipice of World War III. I believe we are already in it, but officially we are at that stage, right? This is what is about to come. The way Putin and Russia respond is going to be very, very important. Are they going to just take the hit and keep moving on. History and the history of the SMO would tell us that is exactly what they're going to do. They are going to get hit, and they are going to change the end goal of the SMO based off of those hits. That's my bet as to what's going to happen. Do I think there's going to be a tactical nuclear weapon used? Fuck no. That makes no sense politically for Russia. Do I think it has merit? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Russia could use a tactical nuclear weapon, send a very clear message, and basically reestablish all those red lines. However, I think that plays directly into the US's hands. I think the US and the West will use that for the next century against Russia. I think that it is the way that Russia could potentially lose this conflict. So while the idea of a nuke, while the doctrine, while the red line has been crossed, while the doctrine permits it, does it win you the war? That's the question that Russia has to ask themselves. I think that there are multiple other escalation options available. Definitely. First off, cutting off all power in Ukraine. They haven't struck nuclear facilities, which would be easy to do and not cause a meltdown. Basically, you're not trying to Chernobyl Ukraine, but shutting down nuclear energy distribution would be the first thing, right? Instantly. Second thing, bridges, take them down. That's more of a message thing. Yes, you're going to cut off the Ukrainian army, but they're still going to get stuff across. So it might hamper, but it won't be like a collapse situation. And then decapitation strikes. Just start targeting high-level individuals. And if there is a single NATO asset in the country, you take it out. If you have intelligence of any single NATO asset in the country, you strike it. And the Russians haven't done that the entire war. They haven't. They've been so very careful. European leaders walk around the streets like nothing's going on. Nobody's afraid of getting struck. There's obviously backroom deals going on where there's certain targets that aren't being hit for very specific reasons. But it seems to me that, again, Russia is just being taken advantage of every single time there is some sort of basic understanding. The second Russia overcomes the West's ability to fight this war, the West is forced to escalate, and Russia is there again getting slapped in the face. It can't happen again. I don't think it's going to happen again. Putin has made it very, very clear what is going to happen if this does happen. And are we going to see a direct retaliation? I don't know. It's possible. It's not possible. We'll see. Like I said, history would say we probably won't. But when we come look at the map, what is going to happen is instead of this sanitation zone to prevent artillery strikes, right? Instead of this, 10, 20 mile sanitation zone around the border, what we're going to be looking at is instead half of the fucking country is going to be gone. That's the reality, right? At least that's the reality. So I've been pretty cavalier about this subject on Twitter because I think it's going to be fantastic to watch play out. Will people die? Yes. And I feel bad saying it's going to be fantastic to watch. I don't want to watch people die. That's horrible. I don't want to see that at all. What is going to be interesting is when Ukraine does this, Russia is going to respond in one way or the other, whether it's taking more territory, loosening up rules of engagement when it comes to collateral damage, really starting to actually, treat this war the way the United States would treat any operation that it, undertook. The Gulf Wars are a prime example of that. They're going to complain. They're going to say that Russia is a terrorist nation. They're going to say this, that, and the other. And I'm just going to point to the sign and say, they told you. They told you it was going to happen. You don't get to play victim. They told you what was going to happen. And it's this childish mentality that I see a lot of pro-Ukrainians have and a lot of Western politicians seem to have in their foreign policy, where they act as though there are no consequences for their actions. They continue to do so. They continue to do so. They continue to do so. And then when something finally happens, they play the victim. It's the same kind of thing that Israel does. It's very, very, very childlike. That's the only way I can describe it. All right, I got a question here. Sorry about that little rant. I get so tired of watching the same political theater play out over and over again, and people are sitting there arguing about it like their opinions matter, or like what they think is going to change anything, what they say on Twitter is going to change anything. No, this stuff has been decided months ago, months before you even heard it. It was decided. You are the best. I am not, but I really do appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for your donation. I really appreciate that. Okay, back to the map. Okay, so coming up here, this is where we're seeing actually quite a bit of progress. Remember, guys, this is about 72 hours now, 48 to 72 hours worth of progress in this region. Remember that Ukrainian units were pulled from the Kupiansk everywhere, basically east of the Oskal River. That's Oskal with an A. If you spell it with an I or an O, you are incorrect and wrong. It is an A, and I don't care. That is an inside joke from my Telegram. So sorry if you don't get it. The Russians have captured Ivanivka. Sorry, there's the Russian way to say it, and then there's the Ukrainian way to say it. They have improved their positions greatly. Again, remember that the goal here is to get onto this road and basically take this road to Kupiansk. This is the primary supply line in this region. If the Russians can reach it from the north, this entire area collapses. So the Russians are pushing very, very hard here. Once they get on the high ground, it is downhill to the Oskal River. So basically, the fighting will only continue for the Ukrainians until they reach somewhere around here. Once they reach that, the Ukrainians are going to have a very, very difficult time staying on this side of the river with the Russian artillery, ATGM fire, everything just downhill on these positions. Okay, Berestove has been completely captured by the Russians. Again, a small advance, but another advance. You can just see how the lines, there was no movement on this front for weeks and weeks. And then as soon as the lines get weakened by this Kharkov operation, the Russians begin to make progress. We have more Russian progress towards Mysazorivka. Not going to try that one again. And we have some slight Russian progress right on the border of the Luhansk and Kharkov oblasts near Novovadyana. So some small, I mean, not huge advances, but in an area where we have not seen hardly any progress for weeks and weeks. This is a very big, oh, what the, I look like I have sunscreen on my nose, huh? The window's open. That's so annoying. Oh my goodness. Putin, good president, but the worst commander. Well, he's not a commander. He doesn't have anything to do with the military. He makes decisions that affect the Russian nation. I mean, on a geopolitical scale. So if it's something like launching a nuclear weapon, yeah, he's going to be a little bit more restrained, as you would hope a good leader would. He's not a military commander by any means, and he doesn't have any say in the military, command structure. So if Russia needs to win, they have to let Putin out. Nope, I don't agree. I think you need a rational, level-headed individual leading the country. You need your crazy lunatic right-hand man, like the wild card. You need your strong military leadership. You need your diplomat. It's chess, guys. You need your rooks. You need your knights. You need your kings. You need your queen. That's how it works. All right. Coming down to the Chasev Yar area, we have a Russian advance out of Bogdanivka towards Kalinina. That is going to open up, again, meeting this canal here is important for the Russians. This is the goal in the Chasev Yar area. Again, if they can cross here, great. If they can put pressure on Chasev Yar, great. If they can force Ukrainian rotation to Chasev Yar, fantastic. But again, the goal is the canal, level out around the canal, and then after that happens, begin the operation towards Chasev Yar. Again, we have more Russian advance around the Avdiivka area. Ukrainian lines are beginning to weaken here significantly. This line of defense that the Ukrainians have been desperately trying to hold with meat for weeks and weeks and weeks outside of Semenkivka is finally beginning to fall. Russians have completely captured Netalove, which we've already talked about. And there is reports that the Russians have made progress down the E50 towards, what is this town? Karlivka. Karlivka is kind of a larger, weirdly distributed village. We have another Russian advance just south of Netalove, just capturing everything on this side of these reservoirs and creek. Moving down to Krasnohorivka, we actually had a very interesting story that happened here. For some reason, a Ukrainian Bradley decided to go on a little bit of a wild adventure with a assault team. They pushed in through here, came down this road, and ended their trip somewhere around here. The pro-Ukrainian sources were making the claims that the Ukrainians had basically recaptured all of these fortifications. This never even happened. I mean, the event happened. The Bradley did come down here. It was hit by an FPV around this area. The crew got out. They were struck by a few artillery rounds. I think that they definitely sustained injuries. And then it is reported that the entire unit, or what was left of it, surrendered to the Russians. So suicide Bradley mission, I guess. I don't know if they were just trying to run away. They all agreed that they were going to run and try to make it to Russian lines. It was a very, very odd assault that yielded nothing, and a Bradley was lost and 6 to 8 men were lost. So don't know what the plan was. Pro-Ukrainian sources were cheering, very, 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 very happy. Never happened. Nothing. The lines never changed here. This area is just kind of gray, like there are Russian and Ukrainian units. So a Bradley driving in through this side of town would be able to cross these lines. There's no minefields, anything like that. Pointless and a waste of a Bradley. Congratulations. Outside of that, we have another small advance in Staromayorsk. It does appear now that most of the village has fallen to the Russians, so I will actually update that now. Specifically, this more southern end up against this river, which looks kind of obvious that it wouldn't be holding right now, considering the salient it is in and how hard supply would be to that area, but we don't change the map until we know for sure. And Deep State is saying that almost all of Staromayorsk has been captured. So we are going to put the southern portion of it with, there you go. So most of Staromayorsk now has been captured. It's likely everything on this side of the river. I will update this map in the coming days. I think this area has also been captured. We just don't have very good geolocations in this area. Uruzhain, the Russians are leveling this part of the town with glide bombs. We see almost daily glide bomb videos. The Ukrainians are mostly only present in the northern part of Uruzhain on this side of the river. And then no updates on the Robitny salient, which is no longer really a salient, and no updates on Kherson. All right, there we go. Map done for today. Again, just be on the lookout for a Russian push towards Zolochiv, and then there is also rumors of something going to happen in the Sumy region, which makes sense. I think that the Russians already have decided that they're going to go to the river. Again, this is part of the political theater, guys. The political theater is just not on the NATO Western side. The political theater is also on the Russian side. The whole, we want to negotiate, we want this, we want that. It's nonsense. Everybody knows there's no negotiations happening. Everybody knows that the Russians are going to want more than what the Ukrainians are willing to give. The Ukrainians are never going to give what the Russians want. There's no point in even talking about it, but you have to put on the political theater. You have to seem willing. You have to pretend for some reason, because that's what keeps people happy. And people being happy is much more pleasant than people being distraught and upset and aggravated. So be on the lookout for those events. Again, I think the Russians are going to go to the river. Everything else is political theater. This sanitation zone is a bunch of crap. It doesn't even make any sense. It would never work. It would never last. The Ukrainians could never accept it. Just expect this to be the new Russia right here. Yep. All right. Enough with the map. Let's get into some articles. Oh, wow. That's so annoying. There's like a little crack in there. That's so frustrating. You can see how bald I am. All right. Like you couldn't see before or something. Any news about the missile strikes on the West? I don't know what that means. Okay. So I'm just going to go over kind of the timeline. Nope, I don't want that. So we had a presser with Macron and Schultz. He was right over here off stage. They came out and Macron showed this cool little map that just got printed out. Literally just went on Google Images and found the first thing you could find. Or IS. Wait, is this live map? Yeah, live source. ISW live map. Of course, they're using the think tanks. We're just gonna pop this one up just for a second. Oh yeah, brother, I am swole. I'm like 13 pounds up this month, so I am back on the old gym grind pretty seriously. All right, where is it? Where is it? All right. So he came up with this cute little map, Rusi, and basically he came out and gave permission for Ukraine to use Scalp cruise missiles to strike targets inside of Russia. A very bad idea, but desperate times call for desperate measures. The West has no options. Ukraine is fundamentally losing the war. They are going to lose the war. There are Western articles coming out now saying that Ukraine knows it's done. It doesn't have options. It's trying to figure out what it's going to do. They're talking about switching from a traditional war to an asymmetric war, which I don't really understand how you're like. I don't know how you're going to do that, because once you switch to an asymmetric war and commit to a war where you're not holding lines anymore, the Russians are going to move in and establish themselves. So neither option's good. Neither option's going to work. And one of the only things they can think is, well, let's try to slow the Russians down by striking their air bases across the border, damaging their ability to drop bombs on Ukrainian positions, basically slow the Russians down. Stall tactic. The West will never be able to provide enough weapon systems to Ukraine to actually win them the war with enough deep strikes. If you guys pay attention, you would know that for every Ukrainian ATACMS strike on Crimea or in the Luhansk region that takes out a Russian battery, there are 10 to 15 missiles going back daily. We get these Ukrainian strikes every other day, every couple days. Russian strikes are happening every single day. There are drones flying over the country every single day. There are, Iskanders, cruise missiles, KH 59s and 69s, all day, every day. Missiles, glide bombs, everything. None of that is coming back. This is what the whole situation is trying to rectify. It will never do so because the Ukrainians and the West just don't have the capacity to actually create the weapons. They don't have the ability to produce them. All right. Next article. Is it this one? No, it's this one. Okay. And here we have an AP article. France Macron urges a green light for Ukraine to strike targets inside Russia with Western weapons. So this came after he gave the green light. He's begging everybody to give the green light, even though the decision has been made months ago. France's president has joined the head of NATO in pushing for a policy shift that could change the complexion of the war in Ukraine. When they say change the complexion, that means escalate. That's all that means. Allowing Kiev to strike military bases inside Russia with sophisticated long-range weapons provided by Western partners. The question of whether to allow Ukraine to hit targets on Russian soil with Western weaponry has been a delicate issue since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion, and compared to a half-scale invasion, on February 24th, 2022. Again, it was kind of a medium-scale invasion, right? 180,000 versus 500,000 doesn't seem like a high-scale invasion. Anyway, political theater, it's all just a joke. All of this has already been decided, right? None of this matters. It does not matter. All of this chit-chatting, all of this, oh, we don't want to cross lines, we don't want to do this, we want to be careful. It's bullshit. Everything is decided in back rooms months ago. It's bullshit. All right. The next one. This kind of goes along. I just wanted to talk. Oh yeah, no, this one. So here we go. Biden's top Biden aide, which is not. I don't. It's Blinken. Signals openness to letting Ukraine strike Russia with U.S. weapons. So now that everybody else says it's okay, the U.S. will wait for the first strike to happen, and then they'll come in and say, "Oh, it's not our fault. Everybody else is doing it. We're gonna do it." It's theater, guys. This is theater. This is a joke. This man right here is the biggest clown on the face of the planet, destroying our country with the political choices he's making. He runs the country, I'm pretty sure. Not him, but his group. His group control what's going on right now in the nation, and that sucks. Okay. So again, the U.S. doesn't want to do it. We're never going to do it. We'll never do it. We're never going to do it. Okay, we'll do it. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And people fall for it again and again and again and again. Here we go. As Ukraine war rages on, Russia activates sabotage plans in Europe. Again, when you're reading Western sources, guys, be very careful. Propaganda is very easy to spot. If it is meant to scare you into fearing something, it's usually propaganda. Almost no articles these days are being written with anything but fear, because fear is what attracts eyes. It's what sells. It's how you get sponsors, everything. It's how you get Amazon to advertise on your Al Jazeera webpage. But here we go. As Ukraine war rages on, Russia activates sabotage plans in Europe. Russia is accused of putting into effect a psychological, economic, and military operation planned by the USSR. Oh, spooky USSR. Intelligence experts have warned that Europe is under a growing threat from Russian sabotage operations and believe those operations aim to secure concrete military results in Ukraine, political and economic cost to Europe, and nuisance value. Okay, this is very, very, very important. While I just said that this could be propaganda, we've been watching this happen in Russia for months. We've been watching fires break out. The Ukrainians did a full planned operation, a sabotage operation inside of Russia. They were starting fires everywhere. We saw it for months and months and months. It has basically stopped now. We've stopped seeing it. I don't know if that's because most of the groups, the cells, the willing participants were weeded out. I don't know if that's just because they've been replaced by long-range strike systems. It's hard to tell. But this is very real. This is what World War III looks like when you can't nuke your adversary, right? Because your adversary is going to nuke you back. This is what real war looks like. If you start seeing factories blow up in Europe, particularly artillery shell factories, which, get ready, Pennsylvania, Scranton, PA, paging, you guys have a very large artillery factory that I bet within 2 years will be 50 to 60% destroyed by a large fire. Take that prediction to the bank. The Russians are definitely going to go through with something like this because you have to. This is part of the war. Okay. Let's go to the last story I wanted to talk about. Some new aid that's being delivered. Ukraine is getting 2 of these AWACS reconnaissance aircraft provided by Sweden, worth 1.3 billion. These are going to improve Ukraine's ability to conduct strikes. Will likely be complemented by the F-16s. It's all been planned. This was planned months ahead. The Swedes were not like, we got 2 AWACSs we can send to Ukraine. No, they were like months ago, hey, how are we going to create plausible deniability when Ukraine starts striking Russia with Western weapons on Western aircraft, probably being protected by Western air defenses in Western Ukraine? How are we going to do this? Oh, well, we'll give them 2 AWACS reconnaissance aircraft so we can just say they're the ones picking out the targets. Again, theater, bullshit. These are not going to do anything for Ukraine. In fact, F-16s and these aircraft require bases that have hefty logistics, and Russia will just be able to send 100 Garin drones at any single base that they have obvious intel is being used or prepped for F-16s. They can send missiles. They're just going to crater any airfield that these are going to fly out of, and there's maybe 2 or 3 in the country that are in the proper Western position and within strike range of Russia. So I don't really know how the F-16s are going to even work. I'm very interested. If the Russians can't crater an airfield, then I don't have much hope for them winning a war against NATO, because that's what needs to be done against NATO. We'll see. We'll see how the Russians respond. Time will tell, guys. The classic time will tell. All right. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in. I have gone through basically everything that I wanted to go through today. It's pretty fun. So I'm just going to close out of some of these tabs up here. And I actually wanted to just talk about something on my Twitter. So I'm going to go over there real fast. Talk about a few things on my Twitter. But get in questions, guys. Get in questions. I wanna do a little chat here before we shut her down. All right. So just a couple of things going on. India's Reliance oil company, one of the largest oil refining companies in India, has agreed to buy Russian oil in rubles. This is going to be good for the Russian economy. It's going to be good for the ruble. And this means that Europe will be funding India to buy Russian oil in rubles. So if you were wondering how sanctions were going, that's how sanctions are going. Europe is buying gas and oil from India at an exorbitant rate compared to what they could have been buying it from Russia, and it's Russian oil. Crazy, guys. Europe is winning. I'm sure of it. I'm sure Europe's going to come out of this stronger and more united than ever. The US is going to be fine, but not Europe. Here we go. The Russians have finally put covers, some protection on their airfields. Again, these are just thin sheet metal, so not going to stop a missile strike, probably not even going to stop a cluster strike. Really, what you would need for that is a built-in, like dug-in bunker. So like earth covering it, offers some actual protection. These are what look like canopies that will probably protect these aircraft from drone strikes. But most importantly, this creates a situation where the Ukrainians have to guess where these aircraft are parked. So if you can get a drone into the airbase, say that there's an aircraft here, an aircraft here, an aircraft here, and an aircraft here, you have to guess which one it's under. And if you don't get the right one, you don't get the plane. So this is a means of visual obscuring of the planes from Western satellites, and offers some minor protection. It's not fantastic. It's not the best. It's something, right? And this comes right after the MOD was cleared up. I saw Fighter Bomber whining and bitching about this, like Fighter Bomber regularly does. Again, Fighter Bomber is a good source, but I don't put up a lot with the whining and complaining from analysts. It's shitty. I know he has his bias, so whatever, but it's just annoying. I don't like people getting emotional about this stuff, because if you get emotional about your analysis, you're going to let your bias interfere. You have to be cold. You have to look at it from every side. The Russians are shit. The Ukrainians are shit. The West is shit. China's shit. That's the way you have to look at everything. Or Russia's good. The West is good. You can't let your pre-established biases of these places affect what you're seeing in the reality on the ground. Your analysis. Me, dude. I can't believe I said that. Not urine analysis, guys. Your analysis. China's shit. US is shit. Russia's shit. Everything's shit. Are the Yanks the good guys? The Yanks are always the good guys. Have you not seen Hollywood? Those old factories aren't designed to produce that many shells. Accidents happen when pushing limits of the process. Russia had the same issue in 2020 and 2023. Yeah, I think that there was some. Again, this is another thing. People always overanalyze everything during wars. During a war, everything is war related. I know it's very suspicious the way that helicopter went down in Iran, but sometimes helicopters just crash in fog. It's really crazy how that happens. Remember Kobe? Kobe was not in the middle of a geopolitical event that required his assassination, and he flew into the mountain just the same as those guys did. So mistakes happen, things happen. Coincidence? Possibly. Could it have been an assassination? Maybe. But you can't look into everything and say, oh, it was Ukraine. Oh, it was Russia. Oh, it was this. Oh, it was that. Sometimes there are fires, especially when you're trying to produce massive amounts of equipment and stuff like that in factories that are being renovated as you are producing the equipment, right? It's accidents happen. They happen in peacetime. You see a large fire in your city and you don't go, oh my God, we're under attack. No, you go, oh, that was probably an electrical fire or something like that, right? So you always have to like take a step back, calm yourself down and and think, what is this? What are the chances of this just being something happening in a country of 180 million people? Okay. All right, guys. If you have some questions, seriously, get some questions in. I'll look up. Have you seen that D-Day film, Shaving Price? Why? I thought that was a real question. Come on, bros. Get some real questions in here. All right, here we go. Do you think if the West keeps pushing, do you think that we will hit a Russian red line? We've hit Russian red lines. It's just the Russians don't respond to red lines the way everybody in the West expects the Russians to respond to red lines. We have all of these preconceived notions of this Soviet megalomaniac enemy in the East that's coming to destroy us. And they're unhinged and they'll use nukes and they'll do this and they'll do that. Bro, they're getting their early warning radars hit right now and just shrugging it off like it's not even happening. That's crazy. That's crazy. Right? That's like that is a clear crossing of their nuclear doctrine that allows them to do whatever. I made a tweet about it the other day. I said Russia has the legal rights within their country, which they have very, very high legal standards for stuff, to conduct this war however they see fit now. They can call it a counter-terrorist operation. They can call it a war. Their threshold for use of nuclear weapons has been crossed multiple times. Will they do it? I don't think so. I don't think it's a smart thing to do, but they can, right? They have the ability. The red lines are enforced in a different way. And the way you're going to see them enforced is how this war ends. The Russians have been more than willing to stop this war at any point and negotiate a settlement that includes the recognition of Crimea, the neutrality of NATO. Likely will have to be regime change in Ukraine now. Like, I don't know how willing they've actually been to stop, because I don't think that the West has been willing. I think this is a lot of theater, but at least what we can see from open statements is that Russia has been willing to come to the table, and the entire time Ukraine has been unwilling to come to the table. They refuse to negotiate. So the war is going to end on Russia's terms. I'm telling you this right now because of the way the war is going. Everybody can already see it. I actually wanted to talk about this and I almost forgot. We had this article posted by a certain reporter at the Telegraph, and it was updated 3 times in about 20 minutes, and the title was changed each time. So it started with, Ukraine knows it's finished. While Britain concerns itself with a general election, Kiev is buckling under the force of Putin's brutal assault. That is not a good headline for people that need the hopium kick that this war is going to be won by Ukraine, right? This is devastating. Ukraine knows it's finished. Then why are we even talking about letting them strike Russia? That's just unnecessary escalation. So somebody at the Telegraph or somebody at the probably the government of the UK came by or made a call and said, hey, yeah, you can't title your article that. or we're going to have issues. Whether it's the Telegraph, I think the Telegraph isn't it owned by Boris Johnson? Am I wrong? Am I wrong in that? For some reason, I think that. Let me know if I'm wrong. Tell me who owns the Telegraph. Anyway, the article was changed. Ukraine now knows that it has just months left to survive. Reality, yes. Factual, yes. Does it give Ukraine any chance of victory? Does it allow what we're doing policy-wise to make any sense? Absolutely not. It doesn't make any sense, right? So what do we have to do? Well, we have to put a little bit of hope in there. We got to give them a chance, right? We got to make what we're doing seem like it's going to make a difference, maybe. Without Western armaments, Ukraine may only have months left. So if we give stuff, Ukraine may have more than months left. That's the best that they could come up with without being a completely fraudulent and propaganda-based article, right? Didn't mean to leave that up there. Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. That was kind of impressive. And then lastly, here is, just for you U.S. taxpayers out there, here is $320 million of your tax money that was intended to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, which actually ended up delivering weapons to Israel to continue the genocide in Gaza, has been washed away in less than, 5 days? That's your money. That's how your government spends your money. $320 million could have been pushed into infrastructure, could have been pushed into education, something domestic. Even if you don't like the way the money's spent, even if you're like, education sucks, this, that, and the other, this does nothing. If you can increase teacher pay by $5,000 and get teachers to stay in their jobs longer and be better at their jobs, and more applicable people are applying. I just know because I was in education, and so I have a personal bias towards the education system in the United States. At the higher levels, it's garbage, but at the teacher level, there's more that can be done to improve classroom standards and improve education. But the U.S. doesn't really want its population smart. They want dumb workers. That's what they want, dumb workers that stay in line. So my issue is, why isn't this helping Americans? Why did we just deliver weapons to Israel for 6 days and then have this useless pier washed away? Because Israel has our politicians like this, and they tell us what to do. All right, guys, I'm done. I am done with all of the information that I had. Again, questions? Let's see. Do we have any questions? Yeah, seriously, $320 million for this. Yeah, it would have been a few miles of border wall, an actual issue that needs to be solved, right? We don't need illegal immigrants coming into the country in the numbers that they are currently coming into the country. It doesn't make sense. Border security, border wall, however you want to solve that issue, I don't care. That's another issue. Infrastructure, another issue. The American electrical grid is horrible. It's horrible. It is so vulnerable to foreign attack that it is a national security risk. We don't care about that. That costs money to fix, and it doesn't make us money, right? That's the issue you're running into. If it doesn't make anybody money, nobody wants to pay for it. This makes politicians money. $320 million for a pier in Israel? Come on. First off, my buddy's getting the contract to put the pier up, right? I think it was the U.S. military, but somebody built the pier, right? Somebody brought it in. Somebody put it down. It's somebody's pier. Somebody got paid for it. So some politician made somebody a couple $1 million for the pier, and probably got a job after the war is over, or after his career is over. And that's how things get done. So if the thing you want to improve in your country doesn't actually make anybody money, don't expect it to get fixed until it's broken. Completely broken, like unusable broken. Yes, infrastructure in the U.S. is crumbling, and we don't give a shit. If you can't see it and it's not ugly, we don't care. We don't care, and it sucks. Our country is literally falling apart, and it's just going to get worse and worse. And then when the bill comes, it's like driving your car when it's making a bad noise for a really long time. Whatever is happening under there is not good. You're just avoiding that bill. And eventually that, that noise is going to turn into another noise and another noise. And then that bill is just going to keep getting higher and higher. And then you're not going to be able to afford it and you're going to total your car. That's where the US is headed. We're in debt. Every US citizen is in debt. We're running out of options. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there today. Thank you so much. If you want to support me, guys, the easiest way you can do that, like and subscribe. Maybe share the video with somebody you also talk to about geopolitics if you think they might be interested. I know I'm an unhinged loose cannon on here. I don't present information the best. I try my best. I'm sort of the layman around here, so I get it. But if you guys can help me in that way, that's the best way you can support me. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about anything like that. You guys just being here watching this, that's what helps me the most. And I love every one of you so much. And I love that you guys communicate with me. And I love that you support me on Patreon and that you talk to me in my chat on Telegram and you comment on my posts on Twitter. You guys are the best. And I appreciate you so much. Some of you have become actually really good friends of mine. And I think that's really cool. So I appreciate you. Take care. Be safe, guys. I will probably be on tomorrow unless there's absolutely nothing to talk about, right? Because I'm not going to get on here and bore you. Be safe. Take care. And best wishes to you all.